Hello and welcome to another one of my guides for Twisted Leagues. This guide's going to be aimed at getting 6,000 points the fastest way for that Slayer Helm, and it's not going to be designed for long-term efficiency. So if you want to see something that's designed more towards a long-term efficiency, I have a link in the description below for my maxing guide. They'll be going more in depth for stuff, and this is just designed as a burnout. So I'll give you a couple options here and there, but this is designed to go pretty straightforward so you can get the Slayer Helm at 6,000 points the fastest way. So without further ado, I'll be getting into the intro of how you start off with the 6,000 points. One more thing before I get into this actually. So this guide is designed for being high efficiency and also high effort. So if you want to find a lazy man's guide, I'm going to be coming out with one soon, and I'll put the link to the description whenever it comes out. But this is high efficiency, high effort, and some of these grinds are not pleasant. Just gonna put this in heads up, and it takes about 60 to 65 hours to get this. Yes, this is not a small grind, so if you're planning to do this before, like, a few days before League ends, I highly recommend you don't. So start sooner than later. First off, we're going to be talking about Relics, since those are very influential on how you're going to be doing your grinds later on, and whether it speeds them up or slows them down. So for the first Relic, Endless Endurance, because imagine walking. No, really. You're going to be having a limited amount of teleports, and you're going to have to run to most places. The other two are alright, however, they're only beneficial in certain situations. So Abyssal Accumulator is great for PvM and late game. However, it does run into issues with solo chambers of Xerics, but that's kind of a limited amount of people who are going to do that. Dark Altar Devotion is not too great, really. I mean, you save a little bit of prayer, you get more prayer experience, but just no, don't do it. Please don't. As far as the Tier 2 Relic, we're going to be going with Unnatural Selection. This doesn't really matter so much for the farming contracts, because we're not really going to get that many points out of it. In the long term, you would. However, if you're going for the short 6k point sprint here, you're going to want to pick your Slayer tasks, because some are better than others, and you're going to want to train certain combat styles for a certain amount of time to get the most points out of it. And picking your Slayer task will help, because you also want to get to 60 Slayer fairly quickly, so you can get the points out of that. Hardcore Harvester would save some time in Wintertodt, but it's not really that great overall for time saved, and you're not going to be going and gathering that many more resources outside of that in the 6k sprint. And then the Arcane Courier, just not really, don't do it. That one's just bad, don't. As far as the Tier 3, Eye of the Artisan is the way we're going to go with this. It covers most of the quick points that you can grab, and speeds up most of those grinds. So mainly firemaking is what I'm talking about with Wintertodt, and passively that also influences fletching and construction, and then indirectly you get supplies for smithing, cooking, and herb lore and crafting, so it covers a lot of stuff. If you want to go for a really long-term point thing, so beyond the 6 points, you're going to want to pick Gift of the Gatherer, but because this is a 6k sprint, Eye of the Artisan is better for this. Way of the Warrior is not too amazing. I guess if you really want to rush combat and raids, you would do this, but I still don't think it's beneficial. You'd rather have Eye of the Artisan for rushing raids. Next up, we have the Tier 4. So there's really only two choices here that are logical, and Spirit of the Den is not one of them. So we're writing this one off, and we're going with Treasure Seeker for this guide. The reason why is 100 easy clues is worth 170 points. And to knock out 100 easy clues, it's going to take you, with the Xeric's Talisman teleports, somewhere around 2 to 3 hours. It's pretty quick with Endless Endurance. So we're going to be doing Treasure Seeker so you can gather those up really quickly, and I'll cover that later on in the guide. Now, if you want to go for a PvM sort of grind later on, and you want to go, say, after 6,000 points, you just want to go PvM, hit up some Slayers, hit up some bossing, you can do Konar's Blessing. That's the other really good one in this tier. However, because we're going after points, Treasure Seeker is ideal. But Konar's Blessing is slightly slower, but is still very beneficial. Tier 5 is still like tier 4, so there's only 2 obvious choices, and resilience is not the obvious one. So do not pick resilience. Whatever you do, don't be like the one of 7 people who picked resilience. It's not good. You can avoid most damage, and the prayer restore is nice if you just want AFK everywhere, but just don't. Please don't be one of the 6 people who chose it. So the other 2 that are actually logical are focus or wisdom. And for this guide, we're going to be going with wisdom. That's because you're going to want to speed up the experience of some of the other slower grinds which I pushed towards the end, but they still have some fairly high value points. I pushed those towards the end because wisdom gives ×2 experience in those skills, therefore you cut that time in half, making it more point efficient. Now if you do want to be like more PVM, Kourend's Blessing plus Focus is great. So if you want to do the 6k points and then go PVM, Kourend's Blessing plus Focus, it's going to add somewhere between 5 to 10 hours onto this guide. But I guess if you want to do PVM afterwards, that's a very good selection if you don't mind putting in a little bit extra time for 6k points. So for this guide, you will be choosing Endless Endurance, Unnatural Selection, Eye of the Artisan, Treasure Seeker, and Xeric's Wisdom as your relics. So we're going to be starting off with sort of my classical guide start, and we're going to first come to Hosidus Bar here. We're going to thieve men and women and get up to level 5 thieving, and then we're going to move our way over to the cake stall right here. So once you get 20 thieving from the cake stall, we're then going to go over to the Kourend Center and start stealing from the silk stall over here. You're going to steal 5 inventories and should be up to about 30 something thieving by this point. However, you can't sell your silk yet to the silk merchant, so we're going to do some other task first. So once you've ended up thieving all 140 silk, which you're going to sell for 60 GP each later after we finish this next step, that should add up to 8.4k once you've sold it all. You're going to come south of the Kourend Castle and kill a chicken. We're going to need this feather over here for the Client of Kourend quest. Once you get the feather, go and do the quest. It's pretty self-explanatory, and I'm not going to get into it in this guide. After completing Client of Kourend, you should have 2 lamps. Make sure to home teleport here, and you're going to do the following. You're going to spend your certificate for favor on Piscarilius. You're going to spend your first lamp on fletching in order to skip all of the regular wooden shafts you would have to fletch. And then you're going to have to go sell all of your silk here to Silk Merchant, as I mentioned earlier, and then make your way over to the real estate agent in the northern part of the Piscarilius town. You can then buy a house for 1000 GP and then use your second lamp on construction to get it up to 15 also. So once you've finished buying your house and using the lamp, you're going to hum south and then start using these plows. So you're going to go till 10% using the plows here, and you're going to need a hammer for this activity. From this, you're going to get some crafting experience and farming experience passively. Each time these break and you repair it, it's 50 crafting experience. Each randomly you push the plow, you have a chance at 50 farming experience. I don't have a set number of how much experience you'll get in total from this. However, I'd estimate that from 10%, you should get somewhere around level 8 from this activity. Once you've done that, we'll be going up and buying some compost. Once you finish pushing plows, you can come up to Vana right here, and she sells a bunch of different farming supplies. You can buy compost packs for 2000 GP each, and you get 100 compost, and also individual composts are sold at 20 GP each. You're going to want to get 350 or as close to it as possible. And then the next part involves digging a bunch of saltpetre, which I'll show you where it's at. So coming over here southwest of the Hosidus area, you can find these different salt areas. You have to find whichever one is actually filled, which looks like this right here. You can talk to Canoe right here, and he can give you a free spade if you go for some dialogue. Once you have full inventory of saltpetre, you'll come over here, do a bank deposit box, and then come back and dig some more. And this changes out as it depletes, so it'll move around, and it takes a little bit, say about 10 seconds for the next one to respawn. You're going to need to get 350 saltpetre, basically 1 for each one, and then you'll go back to the bank and use one on each compost. So 14 of those in your inventory make the sulfurous compost, and then you'll come back over here once you've done it all and talk to the clerk. The clerk will basically tell you need X amount to get 100%, and that you have X amount of sulfurous compost in your bank. And she'll say, do you want to give them to us? You say yes, and they'll give you favor for it. This should get you up to about 45%. If you are a little bit short, and it depends a bit about RNG, you should be able to finish it up over here on the plows. You shouldn't be too far off, and it kind of depends on how the prices adjust with the compost and if it's being bought out or not. You may be a little bit short because of that issue. Once you finish getting 45% favor, we're going to come up to either the northeastern part right here of Hosidus and start thieving from fruit stalls, running back and forth, or you can come to the center of town and start thieving from this single fruit stall right here. The respawn time is pretty fast, so you shouldn't have too much of an issue just thieving from one. However, because this one is closer to bank, it's nicer to bank the following items I'll talk about, but you do have the issue of guard dogs attacking you, and at 10 HP that can be an issue. The items you're going to want to bank are pineapples, papayas, and jangerberries. These can be turned into super compost. You also will want to bank strange fruit, not because of the run energy, but because they can cure poison. It doesn't give you immunity from poison, but it does cure it, which is very nice early on. You also get the special fruit tops, and that is a 10-point task that you'll get pretty easily from these. Those can be used for +4 herb boost if you happen to need it for whatever reason with the pie that it makes. And you'll be going up to 38 thieving with these fruit stalls, so you can go thieve for master farmers. So the master farmer I recommend is in this house right here. So he can get stuck in the location like he's at right there, north of the ladder and also by the window, and you can sort of AFK him if you do that. Just be mindful you have 10 HP, so you may die if you AFK it too much. You also get 50 points from thieving from him, so that's some quick and easy points for a task there. You can grab some food from the cake stall here, and once you have enough seeds in order to plant like a full farm run, which includes a flower patch, a couple allotments, and potentially an herb if you have the level for it, come down south and just plant all of those. You do have 45% favor, so these things may die by chance. It only gets protected if it has 50% favor, and that kind of brings up an interesting thing. So if you want to go and get a bit of cash so you can buy some extra buckets, or you have some extra cash to go buy some buckets, you can maybe sell some of the fruits that you have, such as apples, but I don't think they're worth that much. So silk is probably going to be your best bet, like an inventory if that would get you a decent amount of buckets. You can go do that, and you can compost these using super compost or just buying some regular compost, whichever you happen to have. It's not too concerning because you do need a ton of thieving experience. You're going to be wanting to go to 64 thieving, and you're going to want to rotate between, say, like fruit stalls and master farmers mainly, depending on what seeds you have and depending on how intensive you want to go with the potential of dying or not. So go up to 64 thieving while continuing to do the farm runs here, and that will bring us to our next step. So once you have 64 thieving and have a decent amount of seeds to continue your farm runs, you're going to come up here to the Arceuus library. We're going to be going for 80 magic, and it's actually not as bad as it sounds. So you're going to need 545 books with the ×5 experience rate, which really isn't too bad. Maximum efficiency is about 150, 160 books, and you can find guides on YouTube how to do the maximum efficiency. I won't go too much in depth, but you can go search for that if you don't know how to do it. Few things to note, you're going to be getting 420 points. Yes, great number. So you get 10 points from the Arceuus Favor, 210 points from the 80 magic, and you also get 200 points from turning in 500 or more books. You're going to want to pick up at some point the Teleportation Ink book and read that, because you're going to need the teleport unlocked later for some more easy points. But once you have 80 magic, and remember to continue your farm runs throughout this, you should be done with this whole grind in about 3.5, 4 hours, maybe a little bit extra depending on your farm runs, but it really isn't too bad. So this next part is 80 thieving, and I've had some debates about this part about efficiency, And you could come over here to Sherlock's house and start spinning some wool and get up to 14 crafting, go buy a chisel and some thread and a needle from this general store before you come over here. However, I kind of don't see it in the long run. It'd be good, but it's kind of one of those things that's up in the air, and I don't really consider it part of my guide here. So you can just come over straight over here and ignore the gems and all of the fabric you're going to get, just drop them. But if you really do want to use them, you can get up to 14 crafting before you come over here. And you're just going to use this boat right here by Shazy and go to mulch. Mulch comes here, and you're going to run up here. So there's a few different ways you can jump down, and you're just going to jump down one of these dwellings right here. Be careful. Some of these lizardmen will attack you, and they can poison you and hit you for a decent amount of damage. And you're just going to run around over here. That's why I recommended you get strange fruits, so you're going to want to bring those with you. You could also get a lockpick to help ease this, but it's not too bad without a lockpick. Sometimes it's frustrating, but it's also frustrating with a lockpick sometimes. So just click the stone chest. You can get a bunch of stuff such as various seeds, fabric, which you can turn into different pieces of armor with that needle and thread. You'll get various gems such as sapphires and rubies. You also get fangs and the talisman. Because we're going to 80 thieving, you have a very good chance of getting the talisman, which is worth 80 points, and you'll also be getting 100 points for going to 80 thieving. You also get GP, and like you just saw there, you get teleported out sometimes if you fail. So just run down, run back over here, and continue doing this all the way till 80 thieving. And crafting is optional here, but that's mainly just up to you. So, once you finish the 80 thieving, just teleport back. There's a gem stall right there, and there's a gem stall right here. So just come over, steal from one of these gem stalls, and congratulations, that is 250 points and a leak task done. So, it's pretty well worth the quick points. It's about 5 to 6 hours, give or take some, depending on RNG and that, for getting to 80 thieving. But it's well worth the early points, so just get that out of the way, and we're almost ready for Wintertodt now. So this next part's kind of a pain, and we need 100% favor, so that's why it's a pain. If you don't have 34 farming, then that's great because we got some time to kill, and there's a few ways you could go about getting 100% favor for Tithe farming. We can do sulfur as compost like we did earlier, just buying compost, dig up saltpeter, make compost. You get a bit extra farming experience, so that could help speed it up if you're decently far off. And it also keeps you in the area for your farm runs. If not, then you can come up here and come up to the Piscarilius fishing spot, fish some shrimp, anchovies, cook them right here, drop them, go back and forth. Get to 20 cooking for meat pies or 25 cooking for stews, and start doing those in mess halls all the way till 100. You do get 50 points for the stews, but I cover that later on, so it's not, you don't need to do that right now. So once you have 100% favor, we're then going to hit up Tithe farming. I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. So welcome to Tithe farming, and this is both a great and painful thing to do. It's great because you get a ton of league points. It's painful because, well, it's Tithe farming. So we're going to be going to 82 farming with this, and I'll explain why 82. If you did the fishing grind and mess hall grind for the 100% favor earlier, then you'll be kind of at a bit of an advantage because you need 34 cooking to make a garden pie. And if you don't know how to make garden pie, it's like potato, onion, tomato, and you throw that in pie, you make it, and it's a +3 farming boost, which is great. If you don't have that, then just do what I mentioned earlier by doing the Piscarilius fishing and cooking, maybe a bit of mess hall if you want to get the 34 cooking. It's not too hard. But for the points you get from Tithe, you're going to get 200 points going from 34 to 82 for the experience. You're going to get 50 points for playing 100 of the lowest tier, 50 points for playing 100 of the medium tier, and then 100 points for playing 100 of the highest tier seeds. And then you get 100 points for buying the full set and wearing it. You're going to get enough points, Tithe points, to buy the full farming set, and it's the most point beneficial thing. You may have a bit left over after this. Depends if you miss some seeds or not and let them die. And then you're going to have, going over to the farming guild, we're going to have, for entering the farming guild, you just get 50 points straight up. You then get 100 points for going into the medium tier. And then using 82 plus that +3 boost with the garden pie, entering the top tier gets you 250 points. So all of these points from Tithe and the farming guild, you get 910 points. And it only takes about 8 hours, give or take a little bit, for all of that grind. It is a great amount of points, and I highly recommend doing it despite it being a bit tedious. Once you finish this, you just go into basic Wintertodt prep, and I'll explain how to do that next. Okay, so I go for this in great detail and a lot slower in my maxing guide, which is in the description. But for this guide, I'm just going to speed through it, talk you through it, and you should be good to go. And if not, then check the maxing guide. So come over here to Port Piscarilius mine, and we're going to mine 26 copper, 26 tin. You're then going to bank it up here north at the Piscarilius bank, and then go on a little bit of detour. Come over here to the staff shop in Arceuus, and buy a fire staff for 1.5k. You should have the favor if you did library. We'll shift on library, and that shouldn't be an issue. Come down here just southwest of the castle and just north of the minecart. You can get the clue hunter garb. You need a spade to dig it up, and if you don't know the exact location, just check wiki. It's not too hard to find. Once you got those two warm items, we're going to be coming up here to the Livkin area, and you're going to smelt 26 bronze bars, and then you're going to run them all the way down here to the castle, which is like the closest anvil, and you're going to smith them into 26 bronze bars worth of knives. You'll use that for range training later on. Once you got this smithed, you will come back up here to the mine, and you'll be mining 130 iron ore on average for 65 iron bars. Why I say on average, it's a 50-50 chance to smelt a iron bar from an iron ore, and well, it's 50-50 supposedly, but you might have to mine more, you might have to mine less. I don't know, RNG is RNG. If you want to help speed up the mining a little bit and got a bit extra GP, come up here to the pickaxe store and get yourself a mithril pickaxe. It's pretty cheap and it's pretty effective, so recommend grabbing that if you can, or maybe steel if you can't. Go all the way up to mithril with GP, but you should have gotten a decent amount of GP from stone chest, so recommend getting that. It'll speed up this iron a fair bit. And you're also going to want to smith 1 steel bar while you're over here. So 2 coal, 1 iron on top of that. Once you have 65 iron bars and 1 steel bar, you're then going to come over to this pub and buy 1 dwarven stout. Run back down here to the anvil, and then you're going to make 65 bars worth of iron knives. Once you've done that, you will make yourself 1 steel axe, and then we are almost ready for Wintertodt. We just need the levels. Alright, so we're going to do the fun thing called the Run of Death, which is absolutely awesome. So we're going to come here from Shazian, and you're going to run through all the way to raids, go for this path, run through the Lizardmen. Watch out, you may need some anti-poison or the strange fruit, as I recommended from earlier. If you still have some, get some food also. You can avoid some of them too by running strategically around them, but some of them are kind of unavoidable. So expect to take like 2-3 hits, and hopefully you don't die. That's pretty much the dangerous part. Then you gotta run through some bears over here. Watch out for the trolls over here, they're pretty avoidable, and I don't mean Reddit trolls. And then congratulations, you are at raids. Make sure to talk to the mountain guide here so you can unlock the teleport from here to here. It is great. Once you've done that, you're going to come over here to the bank chest. You go use that. That's 10 easy points. Now make sure you are in a CC that you have kick rank. Your own CC works great for this, so use that pretty much. Go to the recording board here, click on it, click the make party button, and congratulations, you're in a party. You will then enter the chamber of Xeric, and you're hunting for a prep room. By a prep room, I mean it has a herb patch, it has a chest to store all of your stuff, it has bats or fish, but none of that really matters. You just need a prep room, and they're pretty common. It's like a 1/10 chance or something. It's decently common, and the main thing in there is you want to use the 2 trees. So using those, you'll just be cutting them. It doesn't matter what wood cutting level you have. You're always going to get the same experience, and it's pretty good experience, and same fire making experience from lighting them. It's 150 woodcutting experience per cut, and then it's 240 firemaking experience from cut. You get 41 woodcutting and 50 firemaking for this for Wintertodt prep. There's a chance you get an Ice Demon room, which is apparently a bit better for the firemaking. I don't know how it all scales with the woodcutting versus the logs that you get to burn, so I don't know how those levels all work out, what woodcutting level you finish off on, but I know for the prep room, that's what you get. And if you need to know how to scout, I cover in the maxing guide, but you basically leave if you don't get what you want, and then you go to the recruiting board and make party, enter chambers again, just keep cycling that until you have what you want. You may get scavengers first, and then the prep room. You may get prep room first, then whatever. Just look for the first 2 rooms and see if you get the prep room. Once you have that, congratulations, you're basically Wintertodt ready. I do recommend this next little thing, and it's pretty quick. Just come over here to like the basically cooking Hosidus range here, and there's 2 oak trees right here. Get up to 25 fletching, that way when we do the Wintertodt grind, you guaranteed hit 80 fletching. If you go from 15 to the Wintertodt milestone I'll talk about next, I don't know exactly what level you'll get, but I know if you start at like 25-30, you will be guaranteed to hit 80 plus, which is the points that you'll need. So I'm just going to talk about this next part because there's not much I can really show you. If you don't know how to do Wintertodt, you can go look up a guide. It's not too complicated, but I'm not going to cover it here. So we're going to be going to 50 million firemaking experience with Wintertodt. By this point, you should have about 2,000 points, and you should have chosen Unnatural selection for your second relic, and then Artisan for your third relic. In this whole Wintertodt grind, you are going to get a majority of your points. It's insane how many points you get. So you'll be getting 1,210 points, essentially from 1 to 50 million firemaking experience. I'm going to say, in 50 million firemaking experience, you are going to get the pyro set. Now, it is RNG. I know people who haven't gone the full pyro set, going to like 50 million plus, but it's extremely unlikely. So I'm going to say you will get it, and that is worth 100 points wearing all 4 pyro pieces. You should also get to 300 kills, and if you're a bit short, then I highly recommend finishing it off. It's 150 points for all of the kills up to 300, and the 300th kill is worth 50 points, so that's why I kind of recommend doing it. Fletching, getting 80 fletching is worth 210 points. You should have 10 of those already, so you're getting an extra 200 points during this grind. Construction, you're going to get an extra 110 points, and then wood cutting, you should be getting an extra 50 points, but you should finish with about 75 construction. So you'll have 50 million firemaking experience, 80 fletching, 60 construction, and 75 woodcutting, give or take. It all is kind of a little different depending on how your RNG is at Todd, how AFK you are, but that's what you should end up with. After you finish this Wintertodt grind, there's a couple quick things you can go do. So the woodcutting guild is one of those ones. You get 50 points for just entering the woodcutting guild. Then right after that, you have cutting a magic log at the Forsaken Tower. The Forsaken Tower is this place right here. There's some magic trees. If you cut one of those, you get 100 points. So that whole thing right there is worth about 2,000 more points, and you should be ending up with just over 4,000 points after finishing 50 million firemaking experience at Todd. You can get an extra 500 points if you get the pet. I just don't include it in this guide because, yeah, just go get the pet. It's easy. You open some crates, you get the pet, but realistically, you're not going to get the pet. You may get the tome, you may not. I didn't get the tome on one account. I got it on another. I know people who went 80 million firemaking experience try in leagues for the tome. It gets to be a mess, but that's not worth points, so don't really worry about the tome. The pet is unlikely, but if you get it, you can skip a decent portion of the end of this guide, which is pretty much a mining grind that is like 6 hours. But this whole grind for Wintertodt is going to take about 25 hours, but it is a majority of your points, which is nice. Okay, for the post-scaling Wintertodt grind, it's a pretty straightforward thing. So you're going to be using a bunch of supplies from Wintertodt, you're going to be getting your cooking as high as possible from whatever fish you got. You're then going to be coming down all the way to Mess Hall, and you're going to be wanting to get to 65 cooking by the end of this. For the stews, if you didn't do it earlier, it's 50 points for turning in 20 stews with 30% or more appreciation. Note, 30% or more appreciation. That's a thing that people miss a lot. And you can do them in multiple sets, but it just has to reach 20 stews by some point or more, and you get 50 points. The same thing with pizzas. 20 pizzas with 30% or more appreciation, and that's worth 100 points. By getting to 65 cooking, you also get some milestone cooking marks. So that whole thing right there is worth 260 points, but you may have done the stews earlier, so. Crafting, with the Artisan Relic, you should be able to get to about 60 crafting. And that's worth, whole thing together, 110 points. You have Herblore, which you should be able to get 60, that's worth another 110 points. And then Smithing, you should be pretty close after doing the whole Wintertodt prep. But you should have some extra supplies, so maybe smelt some bars or something and get up to 40. That way you get those extra 50 points there. And once you finish that, you should be at about 4,600 points or so. And if you haven't by now, you should have chosen your 4th relic, which is Clue Hunter. For starting off with the combat part of the Post-Wintertodt grind, we're going to be coming back to Hosidus Bar. So with the Clue Seeker Relic, we're going to be killing men and women for your starting combat levels because you need 100 easy clues. With this, 100 easy clues will take, on average, 1,000 men and women, and that will be for used later on. Once you got your 100 easy clues here, we're going to be going on to Kourend. So you can find her all the way over here at her mountain. And, well, we're going to be using Unnatural selection now. If you're below 50 combat, you can choose either sand crabs or cows. And those are really good Slayer point stuff. You can find cows like down here over in this area and then keep running back and forth. If you get 17 tasks, you can get 300 points starting from 0 task, and 300 Slayer points is worth broader fletching, which is nice. However, you might hit the 50 combat threshold, and that will remove those from your Slayer list. Another thing that should stay on your Slayer list for a while is Hill Giants, and you can find those over here, just down in the Catacombs, Hill Giants here, and Hill Giants right up here. Those are really good for prayer experience, and the levels you're going to be aiming for in this grind are 60 attack, 60 strength, 60 defense, 60 hit points, 60 slayer, 60 range, 52 prayer, and you get 50 points for turning on smite, so remember to do that. And then of course you have your 100 easy clues. After doing all that, you should end up with just over 5,500 Twisted League points, and by this point you should be about 60 hours in the grind, but the good news is you are almost done. So we're about ready to go into our very last part of the point grind for that 6k. One last thing before we do jump into this combat grind. There are some tasks that you unlocked earlier, and I want to quickly remind / reiterate about these tasks. So with the magic grind, you unlock the Arceuus spellbook and got to 80 magic. So that means that you have access to the Kourend teleport, which is worth 50 points. And you also can revive a plant, which is worth 100 points. That's unlocked with the 78 magic spell from the Arceuus book. So something you should be doing now is using the farming guild, just planting whatever you want, and then just don't compost it and hope it dies. So you should be able to get one of those before you hit 6k points, and then just bring the runes and go resurrect it. And also you can now start getting laws, and you can start doing the teleport for those 50 points. Hill Giants are a great source of runes for both nature runes and law runes for the teleport and the resurrect spell. And then you can also buy the soul runes and blood runes you need in the Arceuus general store. They're a little bit expensive, but you only need to cast it once, so that's not a big deal. So the second side route that you could kind of do, but I don't really recommend it because it's a bit heavier on the RNG side, is you can go kill temple spiders. These have the ability to drop the In Search of Knowledge pages. There's 3 sets of 4 pages that you can use for these books. You then heal a monk in the dungeon, you talk to him, he'll be like, oh yeah, I'm looking for these pages, fill my books, and then give them to Arceuus library. And then from that, you're given a lamp, which gives you 10k experience, base experience for any skill that's above level 40, that then can have the times 5, times 10, or times 20 multiplier, depending on what skill you use it for. So, temple spiders, you do need 43 prayer, and you'll probably have to prayer flick it, especially if you have really low defense. They do hit like 5s, but they're kind of accurate, which is annoying. On top of that, they're a bit slower to kill with lower combat stats, which is why I'm kind of hesitant to say go do that. But the lamp is really nice, and you do get 50 points for doing the In Search of Knowledge minigame on top of it. So it might be worth looking into if you want to, but it's kind of one of those things I don't really recommend it, but it's also kind of a side route that you could do if you want to. Alright, welcome to the end stretch here, and for this part, we're going to be working on mining Golovanova Favor. So, you're going to want to come up here and start mining sulfur. There's ways to safe spot it, there's probably guides out there on YouTube. You're going to want to go to 100% favor, and I believe you can stop at about 65% on sulfur, and then you can go do the minecart thing, and that should get you 100% favor. Once you finish that, I highly recommend you invest in a rune pickaxe, because the next part is even more fun. We're going to be working on mining iron ore all the way till 75 mining. You can mine it here, or you can mine it over here at this mine, or you can go over to Piscarilius mine, but I think this is only a 2 spot over here, or it's a really weird spot. So there's multiple spots to mine iron, just power mine it all the way till 75. And it's going to depend on people, if you can 3-tick or not, and I recommend it's probably going to take about 10 to 12 hours to finish all of that out. Might be a bit better if it's less crowded, but once you've done that, you're going to come to Blast Mine. So you can get some dynamite there if you don't have any from Wintertodt, but once you do, you're going to come in here, and you only need to do a few of these. That's the good news. So, the basically premise is you chisel this, you put the dynamite in there, you click use, and then you light it. You get away because it will damage you if you're in the blast radius. You grab the ore that falls down, and then you put it in the ore sack, and it makes ore. Once you get the ore, you just need 1 adamant and 1 runite ore from this, and congratulations. You are done. You should be at 6,000 points or more if you've followed this guide through. This concludes my guide of how to get 6k points extremely fast, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I've spent about a week and also 3 weeks playing leagues trying to plan this out and figure out how to do stuff more efficiently, where my faults were, and try to see how I could improve on the whole path. Overall, this grind is not small. I want to try and reiterate on that. It will take about 60 to 70 hours to do the whole thing. So plan accordingly, and try not to do it last minute and in a really long run. That's just not healthy. So I hope you enjoyed the helmet, and I hope you've enjoyed the guide. I will be releasing soon a Lazy Man's Guide, and once that's released, I will be putting that in the description also. I also have the maxing guide, as I've mentioned several times in this video. If you're still interested on trying to knock out maxing, stuff has changed, but it's a pretty straightforward guide, and also translates well to a normal Zeah Ironman if you happen to want to do that after leagues. So that'll all be in the description, and remember to like and subscribe, and I'll be posting that Lazy Man's Guide soon.